Hello, everyone. Hey, Dave.
Hello, how is everybody?
Happy Monday.
Happy Monday. And we are, Betsy and I were just speaking with a little bit of a busy morning this morning, but we are now here and ready to go with our next Spotlight Nation. And this session's country was recommended by somebody during last month's session, and I don't see her in the chat room today.
Oh,
So she may catch up later.
yeah.
But we're gonna do a little bit of a guessing game first. It seems to have been popular the last couple times. That was kind of an unplanned new element of our global spotlight episodes. But this month we are going to a country which is the third least visited country in Europe. And the two countries that are behind it are Kosovo, which is actually not officially recognized as a country, and Ukraine, which is right now in the middle of a terrible war, probably, and doesn't get a lot of visitors, tourists. So you take those two countries out, and you're looking at the country with the fewest visitors year-round. They get about 150,000 visitors a year, which is not a whole lot. And there's a number of reasons for that, and we'll look at some of those. I'm going to give you a couple little obscure facts about this country, and I was hoping again that the individual who requested this country would be here to see if she could catch any of these obscure clues. But number one, this country is home to the largest bottle-shaped building in the world. Now, I'm going to guess nobody knows where that is, but I was wondering if I'm not saying her name because I don't want to give away as a clue.
Right. We do have a guess already.
Do we have a guess already?
Yes, already.
I'm getting a weird over there. Okay, we do have one guess. I'm going to keep giving some clues, and then we'll let people know what the actual answer is. This country, and this is more important than it sounds. They have the third fastest internet service in the world, and they have the cheapest internet service in Europe, with packages starting at $7.03 a month. Now, again, that sounds a little bit silly, but I'm going to mention in a minute why that's important. They have the largest Jewish cemetery in all of Europe, and they are the poorest country in Europe. And we do have one answer, and we have one correct answer. The country that we are going to visit today is Moldova. Yeah. Moldova is a very poor country. It is a former Soviet country. So they've had like a lot of the breakaway Soviet, I guess we call them countries at the time. They had a rough time adjusting, breaking away from the communist structure, trying to fit in, to a democratic structure and a capitalistic structure that they were not familiar with. So there's a lot of corruption that they've had to deal with, and some other things. The reason I mentioned the internet, they have in their effort to bring their country up to modern standards and to boost their economy, they have made their internet service extremely affordable, so that again, being one of the poorest nations or the poorest nation in Europe, if they can make the internet service available to their citizens, that's going to foster growth and hopefully kind of allow the economy to build at the bottom on it. So they have, again, extremely fast internet service and extremely cheap internet service. One of the few things that they have going for them right now economically. They're big. One of their big money makers is wine. It's a huge wine growing nation. They have the world's largest wine cellar, which has over 2 million bottles of wine, and it covers over 35 miles of underground galleries. And they sell primarily to Russia. That became a problem because as they started to move more towards a Western model and trying to improve relations with the West, Russia decided to boycott their wine industry, and that just devastated the country. On top of the other economic issues they were already dealing with. So so they've had a rough time, but they're moving in the right direction. Can we pull up the
the global page?
The global page, yeah.
Okay.
So as always, I like to introduce the global project to those members who are tuning in for the first time. The global project was originally developed as an umbrella project for any smaller project that didn't have an alternate parent project to belong to. And the two projects that we had initially were the first responders and the Remember the Children projects, which cover both have a global element to them. We have a recent edition of the Diet at Sea project that started up 2 or 3 months ago, maybe. I think it's closer to 2 months, but that's taken off pretty quickly, and that's focuses on anybody who died at sea, whether it was in a military battle, whether it was just a sunken ship, or even somebody that perhaps got sick and died on a cruise or whatever the circumstances. But anybody that died at sea and not in a particular country can be part of that Diet at Sea project. And we have another new project that we have just added within the last many days, and that is the language volunteers. We're not quite sure exactly where we're going to go with this, but there's two elements that we're looking at, and one is people who are willing to come on and help other members translate documents. So if you speak a language, really any language that you're willing to do some translations with, let me know and we'll get you signed up, and we're putting a roster together. So if somebody has a document or something that they need translated and you're willing to do it, it's kind of a one-stop shop that they can go to and find people to do that for them.
That's
rather than having to track down all the different countries and figure out who can do what. And again, that is just started up. We haven't really done anything with it yet other than get the page in place. So if you're interested, not only in just volunteering your time as a translator, but if you're interested in coordinating and helping oversee members and that kind of thing, assigning people to members, that kind of stuff, we're going to be needing all of that. And one other thing that I have not officially announced yet, but I will do that right now. We have a new leader. We'll scroll down just a little bit further.
On this page?
Oh, no, let's go back a page. I'm sorry.
Okay, go back to the home page.
Go back to the home page. And you will see we now have 2 leaders here. Oh, you just passed it. Myself, David Randall, and I do not know how to say Kylie's last name. We've talked multiple times or communicated multiple times in writing, but I've never heard her pronounce her last name. So we'll just say Kylie for right now. Kylie was a leader for a while with WikiTree. She took a hiatus and is now back. and has agreed to help me coordinate the global project. So
Fantastic.
we'll be working out some roles, and her role is going to be primarily community liaison. She's going to work with recruiting members, helping members who are wanting to start up country projects. While I'll focus more on building up the project pages, she's going to be working primarily with the members. So again, we're still this has only occurred within the last 2 weeks or so. So we're still sorting out roles, but that's the direction we're headed. And I think she's going to be a really good asset to the project. I've only known her for a short time, but we've been hitting it off for a while the last couple of weeks. So this is going to be a good addition to the project. So the second thing we do then is we have now created projects for every country of the world. They don't all have pages active, but a good number of them do. You can go to our alphabetical listing, and you can jump ahead by letter, or just scroll down and you can see all the countries we have available. If you see that a country is in bold letters, that means they have an active page. The ones that are not bold do not have an active page yet, but if you're interested in working with one of those countries, you drop me a note, and usually within 24 to 48 hours, we can have a project page up and going for you. Moldova is the latest country that we've added. We do not have a leader for Moldova, so after hearing today's presentation, if you've got a newfound interest in Moldova and would like to help coordinate the project, let me know, and we'll get you hooked up with that. So why don't we go ahead and scroll down to Moldova? Or you've got it already up there?
I already have it.
Okay, so each of the country pages has the basic formula or basic setup. The countries who were already managed by a team prior to the global project have their own independent system, and they will look different. So France, Germany, Sweden, all those countries are going to have their own setups. But all of the countries that are set up by the global project will have a very similar feel and format to them. Over time, we are happy to allow the teams to take those projects whatever direction they want. So you will see some of them diverging from others in different ways, just depending on what the interest of the team is. But as they start out, they'll all look pretty much the same. The first section is just some basic technical information, our mission, our goals, how to sign up as a member. That's going to be pretty uniform from page to page. It's page 2. If you go over to the next page, you will see
to the Moldova
page.
Yep.
This is where you're going to get your basic facts about Moldova. The location. Moldova is landlocked. It only has 2 neighbors, Ukraine and Romania. It does not have ocean access, but here's a little tidbit too. They did do a land exchange. In exchange for access to a river, they gave Ukraine some of their land. And now Ukraine lets them use a river to get out to the ocean so that they can do their commerce and get out of the country without having to go through Ukraine or Romania. The administrative divisions, I always include that just because that's where the records tend to be held. So just like here in the United States, our records tend to be held in the county offices. Every country has their own set of administrative divisions, and you need to know what those are, and also which one your family's from if you're searching your own family history, in order to know where to go looking for the records. It's one thing to know that your family came from Germany, but if you don't know where in Germany, you're going to have a lot of searching to do before you find your family's marriage certificates or birth certificates if you don't know what town or local administrative division they lived in. we list the capital, some other facts, but then we go on to the history. The history is real brief. Moldova's history is basically one, because they are a small country, because they are pretty much landlocked between those two other countries. They have a rocky history, but in some ways it's actually been fairly stable. They had a lot of, from the 13 through the 1600s, a lot of back and forth between disputed land between Russia and the Ottoman Empire. But they pretty much stayed as an entity, a consistent entity throughout their history. Different governments come and go, but the country itself has been fairly consistent. It's very much a Romanian-based country. The language, which is referred to as Moldovan, is actually Romanian. It's kind of like British English versus American English. For all practical purposes, it's Romanian that they speak. The ethnicities, they have Moldavian is not really an ethnicity. They have, again, because it's a small country, their population is going to be based on their neighbors. They have Ukrainians, they have Russians, they have Bulgarians, they have Roma, which we used to refer to as gypsy. That's no longer a term that is a preferred use, but the Roma. And then there's another population, and I don't know how to pronounce this. It's there. It's G-A-G-A-U-Z, Gagas. I just can't get that.
I don't know.
There's an extra letter in there somehow that makes it so that I can't pronounce it. But it's a small population. It is a small ethnic group that is native to Moldova. They have I think they said about 140,000 speakers of that language. It's considered a dying language. So there's a lot of efforts now to try to preserve it. But, as the numbers diminish and as people, as the world gets smaller through the internet, et cetera, a lot of those languages are disappearing. People just have no need to, young people coming up have no need to learn them. But this is important, because if you hear that, if you are from Moldova, your ancestors are from Moldova, you don't know much about it, and you hear those kinds of terms that you don't know, you need to do some research and learn about that, because that's going to tell you about who your people are. And it's one thing to say they were from Moldova, but it's another thing to understand which ethnic group within Moldova they are from. That's going to give you a lot of information about what kind of lifestyle they lived, were they persecuted, were they, in a lot of the, in India, for example, they have a caste system. And if you don't know what caste your family was a part of, you're missing out on a big part of their story. So those little pieces there are important. And the purpose of this page is not to go into the detail, but it's to throw out those terms and words so that you know, hey, this is something I need to do more research on if I'm going to be doing research in Moldova. The same with the languages. Their national language is Romanian. They do refer to it as Moldovan, but it is Romanian. And they also speak some Russian and Ukrainian, depending on where they're from. And even in a small country like Moldova, they have a couple breakaway groups. I'm drawing a blank on the name. It's Transnistria. I believe that's how it was pronounced. Transnistria is a breakaway country that has declared its independence and works as an autonomous region. Although no country of the world has recognized them as an independent country, they operate as if they are, and someday they may be. But again, if that's where your ancestors are from, that's going to be a very different story than if they're from the main sections of Moldova. So it's important to know that, and we've talked about that in prior episodes. How do you find the village, the region that your ancestors came from? Knowing the country is good, but if you don't know the specific region, it's going to be a lot harder for you to really get a grasp of your family's story. And religion, so Moldova is primarily Eastern Orthodox. It's a small enough country that they don't have a whole lot of diversity in their religions. They do have freedom of religion, so people are free to practice what they choose. They used to have a very large Jewish population. That Jewish population diminished significantly during the Holocaust. And the individual who suggested Moldova for us, Elaine, is doing a Holocaust project right now. That's why I was hoping she would be here today. She almost always is. But a number of Moldavians were lost, Moldavian Jews were lost to the Holocaust. So I believe the number was somewhere around 60,000 that they estimate were killed. And then there's a section here now on Moldavian naming conventions. We put this on every country too, just to give you an idea of some of the things you're going to need to look for when you're looking at a Moldavian name and interpreting it. Moldavian names are fairly straightforward. They tend to be a first name and a last name. Not a lot of middle names. Families, the name is passed down from father to from the male line. So that's fairly much in tune with much of the Western world. So theirs is not so difficult. But again, they do have. You can tell a lot from a name if you if it's a Russian name, if it's a Bulgarian name, that can give you a clue as to where your family came from prior to coming from Moldova. Don't be too quick to dismiss the names as being unimportant. You can get a lot out of first names and surnames. Okay, let's go to resources next, and then we'll come back to the people category. So resources, again, every country we have a resources page, and I start out with the same basic formula. One thing I want people to recognize on these project pages is they're open to be edited by anybody that chooses. So you can come in, they are not locked. You can come in, click the edit button, and you can add sources if you find them. If you have additional historical or ethnicity or language information you'd like to add, go ahead and feel free to do that. It would be great if you would sign up as a member first and work as part of the team. But if it's something small, like you just want to add a resource, and you're not up to being part of the team or taking a leadership role, that's fine. If you're going to be making major changes, it's always good to do that as part of the team and working together. But we have the Wikipedia page. Every country on Wikipedia has a Wikipedia page, but every country also has what's called the if you go ahead and click on that, Betsy, they have an outline page. Yes, click right there. Every country has an outline page. So in addition to the country page on Wikipedia, they have an outline page that talks about all the related articles that they have available related to that country. So it tells you what country, what they have in terms of, as Betsy's circling there, the geography, the language, the history, the culture. A lot of the stuff that I put on the pages I pull from here, but it has other stuff that I don't include, like sporting events and art history and all that kind of stuff that is also interesting if it's a country that you'd like to learn more about. But that's an important page, and not just on the countries, but in fact, I'm going to say this right now. thinking next month rather, we're going to do an episode on how to use Wikipedia in your research, because there's a lot more to Wikipedia than is on the surface. And there's the Wikidata, Wikimedia, and all kinds of things that you can use, not so much in your genealogical research, but in the historical context that you're going to want to pull together to build your family story. There's a ton of tools out there that I think a lot of people aren't aware of. Wikidata, all that stuff. So we're going to go through that. If not this next month, the month after, one of the next 2 months, we'll be doing that. Hopefully this coming month. All right, if we can go back to the resources. So we've got Family Search. Family Search has their what do they call family wiki? Is that what they call it? Or family? Yeah, they have their own wiki, and that's kind of hit and miss depending on the country. Some countries have some excellent resources available over at Family Search. Some countries not so much, but they all have at least a page. So I always recommend going there to see what they have available. Ancestry likewise is hit and miss. Some countries have tons of information, some have very little, some have none. Moldova has 2 databases over at Ancestry. They have a poll tax census that dates from 1796 to 1917, and they have the Moldavia church books, which are from 1811 to 1936. Both of those are written in Romanian, but usually if you can, depending on the handwriting, if you can read them, you can usually start to figure out the patterns to what's the birthdays, what's the baptism days, what's the parents' names, etc. You learn a couple keywords, and I know I do a lot of research in the Swedish records. I don't speak Swedish, but I can read the records because I've been doing them long enough that I know what I can recognize the word for birth and for marriage and for death, etc. Cindy's List, sometimes they have pages for individual countries. In this case, they do not have a page for Moldova, but they do have an Eastern Europe page, and you may be able to find some resources there. US GenWeb, I think from my experience, and that should not say US GenWeb, that should say World GenWeb. World GenWeb has is supposed to have a page for every country, just as we are now doing with the global project. And in fact, the World GenWeb was kind of my inspiration for doing this global project. I think it was an excellent idea that over there at World GenWeb that hasn't quite taken off as well as it might have. But with some countries, you do have active volunteers that are maintaining them. A lot of countries seem to have dwindled off and are not being maintained anymore. But the page is still there. And you'll get a lot of broken links, but you never know when you might find something that's exactly what you're looking for. The U.S. Library of Congress. This is a resource that I was not familiar with using until recently, but they have what they call reading rooms, but they're online, reading rooms for every continent. And within those reading rooms, sometimes they have sections for individual countries. They do not have a Moldova section that I was able to find, but they do have a European reading room that will have resources that are more worldwide, or not worldwide, but maybe continent-wide, but will still include Moldova or other countries. So you may not find a book entitled Moldova whatever, but you'll find a book that is entitled Countries of Eastern Europe, and Moldova will be included in that. So you just have to do a little more digging there. And then I've said this each time, I have yet to find a nation that does not have a national archives and a national library online with a email address where you can contact the archivist and the librarian. When we first started this, I contacted the national archivist in Afghanistan, after the Taliban had taken back over, and they are still up and running. They have had a lot of damage, but they're happy to help out. I have not contacted the Moldavian archives or library, but they are online. They do have records online, and more often than not, archivists and librarians are very happy to help out, particularly when they get somebody from another country that they can work with. It's what they live for, and if if you've got questions, don't hesitate to turn to the experts. You don't have to do the research all on your own. You can turn to somebody. Something that I haven't listed there: universities. If you've got, even in the United States, if you can, go over to the Harvard webpage or the Columbia University or whatever big university, and see if they have a Eastern European history department. And there are Moldovan experts out there. You just have to find them. So don't be afraid to reach out to people outside the genealogical community who may have information that can be helpful to you. So that's kind of our standard setup. Most people have seen that each month that we presented this, but for those that are new, again, this is the beginnings of the setup. What we now are hoping is that people will start adopting these countries, building teams together, and then taking it in whatever direction they want to take it. We do not dictate to the teams what they have to do or what they can and can't do. That's up to you, just like all of our bigger countries, the projects, the French project, the German project, the England project. They're free to go whatever direction they want. These smaller countries are equally free to do as they choose. It's just a matter of getting the membership in there and getting people to start working on them. So let's go now to the people section, which we skipped over. Again, we keep a similar format, but this is going to move us into section 2 of our presentation today. Every country has a people page, a notables page. We always start with the head of state and the head of government. These are obviously going to be living people, so we have a little bit of a limitation on what we can do with their profiles. One thing that we're finding that's a little bit interesting is that some of these individuals who are heads of state, heads of government, do not share the family information like we do with our leaders in the United States. And because of that, they don't qualify to have their profiles opened. So they are world leaders, but for privacy reasons, we can't open up their profiles because they don't meet the criteria of having a family member mentioned in 2 different languages on Wikipedia. For those that don't know the policy on that, in order to open up the profile of a living person as a notable, they have to have at least a Wikipedia page in 3 languages, and they have to have a family member mentioned on at least 2 of those pages. If they don't meet that criteria, as per WikiTree policy, we are not allowed to open up their profiles for public viewing. So again, we do have a handful of world leaders who are considered private individuals and cannot have their profiles open. So that's a little bit frustrating, but because we're a genealogical site, if they don't have family members listed out there, from a genealogical standpoint, there isn't a real purpose of having the profiles out there if you're not going to be able to connect them to any family. Now, it is acceptable if somebody has access to Wikipedia editing. I have that ability. It doesn't take a lot to get that approval for that over at Wikipedia, but you're free to go in and add family members to a web page, and then they will qualify over at WikiTree as well. But you've got to find the family members first. And some of these, there was a world leader over in, I want to say it's the Bahamas, but one of the Caribbean islands, and she was elected president. If you read the local papers in her country, They state outright that they don't know if she's married, but they assume that she is because she has a grown son, and they don't know anything else about the family. But here's her own country's papers, don't know if their president's married or not. That's very strange.
Very different.
But they respect her privacy. It's not their business. It's basically how they play it. So so if we scroll down a little bit more now, on almost every page, I'm going to have a section on the royalty, the monarchy of that country, if they currently have a monarch. But if they ever in their history had a monarch, I will also include that. But Moldova never had a monarch specifically of its own. So this is one of the few countries that doesn't have that section. So we've got a few Moldovan notables here. I'm not going to go through all of them, but we've got, we can just look at their occupations here: a composer, a painter, a writer. We've got an Academy Award-winning film director, who we're going to come back to in a moment, an opera singer, an Academy Award-winning screenwriter. He wrote the screenplay for The Apartment with Jack Lemmon and Shirley MacLaine back in the 60s. We have a gold medal winning Olympic discus thrower, the first president of Moldova, and then a chess master there at the end. So let's go back to Louis Milestone. He is the director of, he won the Academy Award in 1930, actually, for All Quiet on the Western Front. If you're into nostalgic movies, I think that may be a silent film, but I'm not sure. So you'll see here, we have you know, kind of a cool beginning to his profile. But as we get to his biography, you'll look here, not a whole lot there. We have the only source we have here is a WikiTree link, and we have his year of birth and year of death as the only two facts, and those were actually pulled by the computer from the top. So what we're going to talk today, I have those of you that know me outside of the Global Project know I post a lot of challenges on G2G through the Notables Project. And one of the things that I hear time and time again from people is, I don't know how to write biographies. I can't write biographies. It's too hard to write biographies. I don't have time to write biographies. And that's fine. Everybody's got their strengths and their weaknesses. But the problem is we have a really hard time getting anybody to write biographies. So people come in, they create a profile, they put the initial, they've got, like you see there, the birth dates and places. You got a real nice picture there. And they get the individual connected. Now this individual's not connected, but people like to focus on connecting profiles, and then they move on. And we have and there's no biographical information. So what I want to do today, we've got just a short amount of time, and that's fine, because that's part of my message is it doesn't take a long time to put a biography together. So I'm going to kind of take you through the steps of how I put together a quick biography. And, you know, I can write several biographies in a single day because I'm not trying to win a Pulitzer Prize. I'm not writing a novel. I'm not trying to, you know, write something that's going to sell at the bookstore. I just need to get enough information there that people know who this person was. So I've done a little bit of research on Louis Milestone. I have pulled some sources together, and I'm just going to show you how, in a matter of, you know, a few minutes, I don't want to say a few minutes, but in a short period of time, you can pull a real nice biography together that meets what we'll call it an adequate biography. Might not be a 5-star biography, but that's not what we need. We just need, somebody else can come by and clean it up and turn it into 5-star if they want. But we just need to get some facts up here. So the first thing I do is, and I'm going to be cutting back and forth, I'm going to be adding to this profile some of my notes, and then Betsy's going to refresh and let you see. If you happen to be able to, Betsy, if you can give them the ID number of this profile, if anybody wants to go to the profile themselves.
Milstein 80. MILSTEIN 80. I can't.
No, it's not Milestone, because that was a name he took later. So it's Milstein, I believe is how he would pronounce it.
Yeah.
MILSTEIN 80. So if you want to follow along in real time, you can do that. So I am going to add, first off, I'm going to add my sources that I found. And they have now been added, Betsy. So if you would like to do a refresh,
yep,
you can see.
Oh, there we go. Nice.
Okay. So first thing I will tell you is all of these sources were generated by the WikiTree sorcerer. I did not write these out by hand. If you don't have the sorcerer app, you need to get that. I went a long time ignoring people's recommendation, thinking I didn't want to learn some new app. I've already got enough things I'm trying to figure out. And I kick myself all the time wishing I had seen this sooner. But the other thing you'll notice of this list is that I put them in chronological order. And that's, for me, that's real important as I'm writing the biography. I'm not, it helps me avoid having to skip around back and forth. I can write the story as it occurred, and starting with the passenger list. So I don't have any information on him. I only researched this individual about 24 hours ago I started. So I have not gone over to Moldova and looked through the records to see what I can learn about his childhood. But we're going to start with the passenger list. And again, I'm going to do a little cut and paste here. But from the records that we do have in America, I was able to learn a little bit about his birth. And doing another cut and paste here. Okay, and you can refresh your browser and you will see my first two paragraphs. So this first paragraph, Louis Milestone was born, and I don't know how they'd say that, Leib, L-E-I-B, Leib Milestone on 30 September 1895 in the medieval city of Chisinau, Romania, which is today known as Chișinău, the capital city of Moldova. So that's just a couple little facts that I pulled out from other documents. I've got his name, the fact that he was born with a different name, his birth date, the place of birth, and then a little factoid about the city, that it was a medieval city and that the name is now changed and it's now no longer Romania, it's Moldova. So that little sentence right there, pretty simple, basic, but it's a lot of information just for somebody that's just logging in and wanting to learn about this person. It's a lot of information right there in that one little paragraph. So again, this illustrates that you don't have to be, you're not writing a great novel. You're just putting a few sentences together to get the information to the audience. We go on to the next page. On November 2nd, 1913, at age 18, Lieb set sail aboard the steamship General Grant for New York City. Along the way, his ship would stop at Cuxhaven, Germany, Boulogne-sur-Mer, I don't speak French, but sur-Mer, I believe, France, and Southampton, England, before venturing out across the Atlantic Ocean to the United States. That year, he was identified in the Hamburg passenger list as a Techniker or technician. So all of that is simply facts that I pulled off of the Hamburg passenger list. Single document. He has one line, but reading each line, Betsy and I were talking about this earlier. Betsy was mentioning that when she does this, and you can elaborate, Betsy, but just mine that document for as much detail as you can.
Yeah. Yeah, I just wring every detail possible out of it, and sometimes it will lead you on another line of inquiry about the family. Certainly can tell you some things about the individual, and that'll take you pretty far with bio writing.
Yeah. So again, he had one line on, actually, let's click on, if you go down to the passenger list and the second green highlighted area, their ancestry record. Yeah, let's click that. It'll take you directly to the record. And we don't need to look at the record itself because it's kind of a mess, but they've summarized it here. It's one line. All I did was take this information that is presented there, and I put it into a paragraph form. So I didn't have to do any other research. I didn't have to get overly creative with my vocabulary and that. I just presented the facts.
And with a lot of the ships, you can go to Creative Wikimedia Commons and find a picture of the ship, which that could be a cool thing to. You already have some nice photos, but
yeah, and I state, it's a steamship. Now, depending on the era, this is 1913, so you're going to assume it's a steamship. But if he was coming over in the 1800s, what kind of ship was it? Was it a sailing ship, or was it a steamship? Was it an ocean liner? Was it a little, little boat, big boat, whatever? It also tells you where, and I didn't mention this in my narrative today, but I translated some of these words down there. Accommodation, Swiss. I really should have taken foreign language when I was Zwischendeck. That means he was in steerage. So there you can do some research on what was it like to travel on a steamship in steerage. You may not be able to find information on your particular ancestor, but you can get a good idea of what his visit or what his trip was like. How long did it take a steamship to cross the ocean in 1913? So how long was he on the ship? If you can find information on the ship itself, you may find, you may, as Betsy said, you may find photographs. You may find stories from other passengers who've written about it. I recently, unrelated here, but I recently found a journal that was written by a young man who grew up 2 blocks from my grandfather. I don't know if they knew each other, but he talked about what it was like growing up in his neighborhood the same time my grandfather was growing up 2 blocks away. So, wonderful information to give me an idea of what life was like. But you find a journal from a passenger, somebody that was traveling even on a different ship in the same year. That can give you a lot of details that you can put into your story. But let's go back to the biography again. And we're coming towards the end of our time, so I'm going to put the last bit of info here. Now, I didn't know when I chose this individual what his life story was. So there were some things that I would normally put in that he doesn't have available. If you want to push refresh again, he did not have children. So going through census and records and that, it was a little bit, didn't have all the detail that I would have normally liked to have seen. But the next document I had was the 1930 census. He was lodging alone at the Beverly Wilshire Hotel. He was 35 years old and identified as a motion picture director. Now, had I had more time, I would have gone to sites like the Internet Movie Database. I would not have listed every movie he ever made, but I would have looked at the highlights and said, here are some of the films that he was famous for, maybe some of the actors that he directed, and then provided a link that might say, for more information on his films or his works, go visit the Internet Movie Database or whatever other source I might have. So I would be putting more in here on his career. On 27 July 1935, he married Kendall Lee Glasner in Pima, Arizona. I don't know much about her at this point. I haven't done research on the family, but I would. That would be my next thing there, is to find out who she was. I know that her mother was immigrant from England, so that fits in there. 1940, the couple was residing at 1103 San Ysidro Street in Beverly Hills, California, in a home value. Oh, I didn't write the home. The home was valued at $54,000 at the time, which in 1940 was a pretty substantial. So, residing with the couple were Kendall's sister, the wife's sister, Frances Kent, and an English maid named Stella Feathergley. Lewis died at 30 September. That's 1890. That should not be 1894. That's a typo. In Los Angeles. Now, I did not have time to add all the documents in there, but what you see that I did here was just go document by document and take it from a group of scattered facts and put them into mini paragraphs. This is, again, not an award-winning biography. That's not what I'm going for. I just want something that people can read and get a good summary of what the documents say. If you'll scroll down to the sources one more time, what I think is not going to be a big seller is, as great as these resources look, the source citations look, they're not interesting. Nobody wants to read a bunch of citations. The citations are not there for entertainment purposes. They're for research purposes. So you can have all these sources, and I see all the time working with notables, pages that have 15, 20 wonderful source citations and zero biography. I don't want to read 20 source citations. I want to read a biography. So if you think you can't write a biography, hopefully this little demonstration here has shown that it's not that difficult.
You can.
If you have spelling errors, if you have grammatical errors, don't worry about it. Somebody else will come by and fix it, or nobody will come by and nobody will ever notice. So either way, it doesn't matter. But get the information up there, and let people learn something about who these individuals were. All right, we're coming up towards the end of our time. Is there anything you wanted to add, Betsy, before we?
Yeah, I mean, I think you did a wonderful demonstration, David, and shown really it's something that can just be within a day's work, an afternoon or so. And, like I said, I like to wring every detail out of a record that I can possibly find. You may get clues about the fan club of that individual or family. You may get other places to investigate when you look at birth locations. And you can always, we don't know, we weren't there. So when you write the bio, you can use language that suggests that you're not stating fact, that you've looked at the records and you're making a reasonable guess based on what you see.
Yeah, Betsy and I were talking about that earlier, and just yesterday I had somebody point that out to me. I declared that 2 women were sisters. They had the same last name, and they were in the same household. And I said, I'm trying to figure out my brick wall is I can't figure out who their parents were. And somebody said, well, how do you know they're sisters? And I've had them down listed as sisters for 30 years. And it suddenly occurred to me, I don't know that they're sisters. They could be cousins. They could be related some other way. I just always assumed they were sisters. So I still think they probably are sisters, but I will reword it now to say they were likely sisters, or, we don't know the relationships, but it appears that they were sisters, something along those lines. So you can put qualifiers in there. In fact, you should put qualifiers in there if you're not sure. But don't be afraid to put something down, because that's a clue that somebody else can maybe take and turn into a solution. So, all right. Well, we will be back in a month.
Yep, July 15th.
Oh, I should correct that. I believe Betsy may not be with me next month.
Yeah, I can't join in July.
So Betsy will not be here, but I do have a surprise guest that'll be a surprise to me, because I haven't figured out who it is yet. But but no, I have we have somebody that will hopefully be filling in for Betsy. But and I don't know what country we're doing. That will be a surprise for me as well. And I've got a couple topic ideas, but I'm most likely leaning towards Wikipedia and how to get the most out of Wikipedia. Yeah, I think that might be an interesting topic that doesn't get covered much. And one last thing I want to say about the biographies: if you ever get stuck, you don't know what to do, reach out to someone. There's lots of helpful people on WikiTree, and you can always reach out to me, particularly with the notables, and I'll be happy to review things and help you clean them up if that's something you're concerned about. All righty. Well, thank you everybody for joining us. We'll be back in 30 days or so.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you, everyone.
Have a good day.
You too.